Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, friend. I am so excited to have Keith with us today. You know, Keith has this message. Okay, he said it's not a message, but the topic that we're going to talk about is meeting the voices inside of us. And I talk about my bully voice and that person who tries to hold me back or always tries to correct me, or that voice, and it's not a person, it's me, but that thing that just happens that second guesses. And I thought, oh, I want to meet all the voices inside of me. I got to talk to this Keith dude. I'm so excited. So Keith is my new best friend. His information and everything about how to get a hold of him is in the show notes for you right now. But Keith, let's talk about the voices inside our head and their purpose, and when we should silence them and when we shouldn't, or when they become our best friend and when they aren't. I mean, there's so many voices. What do we do with them?
Well, first of all, we should talk about what do we mean by voices. We could be talking about auditory hallucinations, okay, that where you think you hear somebody speaking. But we're not necessarily talking about that. We're really talking about thoughts. We're talking about points of view. We're talking about feelings that are all offering us a perspective on the world that we are in and on the state of our inner self. If you're worried that when we're talking about voices, we're talking about schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder or dissociative disorder, as it's called now, not necessarily. It would include that probably, but primarily we're talking about the more ordinary kind of voices that people metaphorically hear inside their heads.
Yeah, our thoughts, our voices, a voice is something you listen to, right? I listen to my thoughts.
Right.
Sometimes they scare the living crap out of me and make me want to hide, because they're worried about all the future. And other times they're excited about the future. And I would definitely like to listen to one more than the other.
Yeah. Some are much more pleasant to listen to than others. But I think I've come to the belief here that while some of them are a little bit misguided in the application of their mission, okay, they're all basically necessary and need to be celebrated for what they're trying to do, even if they don't
Absolutely.
succeed.
Like if you got bit by a dog and next time you saw a dog, you had a little bit of fear that, oh no, I might get bit. That's a safety message. That's something to giving you some caution because you experienced something different. And sometimes they're cautionist messages and we never experienced it, but we heard about it. So there's those thoughts that go through our head that are for protection or for we don't want to be alone. Oh, I need to be nice or I might be alone. And if I'm alone, I might not survive, so there's those survival pieces. And so completely understand, but how do can we choose the message that we get from these voices that in my head, I feel like they just do whatever they want?
Yeah, they do just whatever they want, and that's because of their design. This is the way I think about it. It's like if a meteorologist wants to try to predict the weather, what she'll do is she will set up a computer program that would model the climate, the world climate. And she would put all this data here about the temperatures and the wind speed and all that kind of thing, in hopes that if she ever if the temperature went up 3 degrees in Ecuador, how many polar bears would die in Alaska then? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So I think this is what we're doing all the time. We learn how to do this from a very young age. We start off by creating a simulation of our caregivers. I have a mother. I'm sitting in my high chair. I want to find out, if I drop this toy off my high chair, is she going to pick it up again? Okay. So, so I do that a few times and I see what happens. And I see, with time, I find out under what circumstances will she pick it up, and so on and so forth. And so I create this model in my head of my mother. And this proves to be very useful if I want to try to predict her behavior. So if I get a little bit older and I think about, oh, I want to steal cookies out of the cookie jar. Okay, what is she going to do if she catches me? Okay, is she going to laugh and give me a second cookie, or is she going to beat me, or what is going to happen? And that would help to guide my behavior somewhat. And parents kind of depend on this, so that when my kids were small and we were ready to cross the street, I would always say, look both ways. Now, I didn't need to say look both ways because I would look at both ways. Okay. But I wanted to kind of install in their head this message here to look both ways before they cross the street. And today I'm very happy to say that they haven't gotten hit by cars for that reason anyway. Okay. and it's worked. But you can also imagine how these things can go awry.
Give us some examples of how that goes awry.
Well, I mean, one way it goes awry is if somehow or another I impart the wrong message. Here, for instance, I get a lot of clients who tell me, my father never let me cry. He always said I wasn't supposed to cry. Okay. Well, now I've been a father. And even though here I am, Joe therapist, all enlightened and everything, I have probably told my kids, don't cry. And what I meant was, I know you spilled your ice cream. I'll give you another cone. You don't need to cry. Or, don't cry. I saw you hit your brother before he hit you. Okay. All right. My message to them was very subtle. Okay. And it was very particular to the circumstances. But because it's given to a kid, kids are not able to capture all that. So all they can capture is the general rule: don't cry. Right.
Okay, yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Never really thought about it that way, but we think we're being cautious and pointed in when to be careful,
right,
or when to do things. But as a child, they don't have the exposure or the information that we had. And so when you say don't cry, it's like, oh, I'm never supposed to cry. Not, oh, in this one situation, it's my own fault and I should just deal with it, So it's kind of fun. And I was thinking about that cross the street thing. Yeah, you can teach your kids to cross the street, but there might be a kid, that looks both ways and doesn't know how to stop, and looks both ways and looks both ways and looks both ways.
Yeah.
And, and overdoes it. And how do you find that? When or how do we say, hey, voice, I got it. I'm done looking both ways. I'm safe. Let's go.
Yeah. The voice didn't say, look both ways, then cross if it's clear.
We forgot that part. They're like, if it's clear, go ahead and cross. But I'm looking.
Right. So these simulations, they do acquire a life of their own. And as I said before, that's kind of a necessary part of their design. Once they're established, it is extremely difficult and probably impossible to reprogram them. Okay. And that's because we're trying to, when we set up these programs, these simulations, they had to be like real people. And real people do what they want. You can't just program them. Okay. Right. So, it would do me no good to have this simulation of my mother. The simulation says she would beat me if I stole a cookie. Well, that's something I need to know. If I decided, oh, I don't like to think that about my mother, okay, and she won't beat me, well, then the simulation doesn't do me any good. It has to be true to the person as we understand them. Okay, so that's why as we go on in life, these voices seem to be impervious to our changing them. They kind of go on doing what they do, right? And the only thing we can really do is either develop other voices to counter them, okay, or learn in some way to um, harmonize them, harmonize all the various voices, just as if you're, the conductor of an orchestra. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, because they can't be in harmony and you can still be protected, yet
Right.
free to go forward and do things without fearing I can't ever leave my house because it's not safe. I once got bit by a dog out there.
Mhm.
And we can take those to the extreme in our safety or say let's frame this for our friend that's with us today. And as you're at work, as you start second guessing, oh, I wonder why John didn't invite me to lunch, but he took all the other guys.
Mhm.
Then what? Or, wow, how come they stopped by? Here goes the CEO walking through. They said hi to Henry, but not to me. What
Mhm.
is it? And then we start wondering what's wrong with us. And because we saw a behavior. So if I'm in that situation, how do I shut off that what am I doing wrong voice to say, oh, Mr. CEO was busy. He had time to say hi to one person. I'm okay. I don't
Mhm.
have to worry about my job. I don't have to worry about what's next. Or I'm in a boardroom and I wanted to speak up, but I was afraid that somebody was going to roll their eyes and think it was something dumb. So I just shut up. How do we get over that? I don't want to feel dumb. I don't want to feel left out. I don't want to be ignored.
Mhm.
How do we silence those voices and or reword them so that they
Mhm.
support us in our journey?
So I have a 4-step procedure. Okay. The first step, I think, is to take the message seriously. Okay. So
Okay.
if you've got these thoughts about your boss, okay, just what are these thoughts about the boss? Let's take this message very seriously and see if it's really trying to tell you something that you need to know. And if you do that and you find it really doesn't say anything that's very helpful, um, then you move on to the second step, and that's listen to the voice that counters it. Listen to the voice that says, "No, it's going to be okay," or whatever it says, and develop that person's point of view. That point. Now, sometimes this settles the matter. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes now you have two points of view and you don't know which to choose. Okay. Sometimes the more you counter it, then the more the first voice keeps on repeating it. Okay. And then that brings me to the third step, and which is what I call turn off the mic. And to understand this, think of like a zoning board meeting. Somebody's just wanting to put a grocery store in, and the neighbors are afraid of all the traffic that's going to happen. So they all come to the zoning board meeting and they give their point of view. You need to hear their point of view. You need to take this very seriously. But then at some point, the period of public comment is finished and you have to turn off the mic, and the zoning board has got to make a decision. Okay. And sometimes this can be a very hard thing to do, but when you acquire the discipline, it's easier to do that. Now, the fourth step, I think, is the most creative step, and it takes the most imagination. And that would be give the voice a different kind of job to do. So the person who's complaining about traffic in the neighborhood, well, give her a position. Give her a position there in the board, okay, that lets her do her thing and be taken seriously and feels values. And so that point of view then gets harmonized with all the rest.
Okay, so
Okay.
I think I missed number 3, and I'm not sure. So, um, do you have like a single word for each step? One of them was, is this voice helpful? Was that the first one?
Take it seriously
Take it.
is number one. Okay. And then what's the opposition is number 2. And the third is make a decision.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Right. Now, and the fourth is, once you make the decision, you're going to end up with some voices that feel that they are not heard. Okay. So you give them some kind of a job. You find something useful for them to do.
Okay. So in the idea here we have a grocery store, and here everybody in the community has come to say whether they want this grocery store or not. And one person loves it because they're so tired of driving farther, and they needed this, let's pretend like it's a health food grocery store
Mhm.
in their area, instead of having to drive so far just to get some organic produce.
Mhm.
And then there's the people who are like, "Oh, I live right next door. I do not need the traffic on this. I do not need all of the noise." So
Mhm.
I'm gonna say, I'm taking both of you guys seriously. I want to hear you all of the opinions, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I'm gonna go, okay, now where is the opposition? Where are we being reasonable and unreasonable? What can we do something about it? And I'm
Mhm.
thinking to the point where, you know how many grocery stores have those big, huge cinder block walls to help cut the noise and the vision of the cars going by
Mhm.
from the
Mhm.
people that live next door?
Mhm.
So, what is the solution if I choose to not put in this health food store, or if I choose to put it in? What are the steps that are going to make the person who was on the other side of it happy, or at least
Mhm.
to be felt heard and that we're
Mhm.
doing something about it?
Yeah.
And then we're gonna make a decision. Okay, I hear you. Okay, we're putting in the grocery store. And Mr. I don't want the noise next door to my house. I'm gonna put you on the committee to make sure we keep the sound down and to keep it monitored and to make sure you're okay. So do
Mhm.
we go through all 4 of those steps in that scenario?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you were to apply this to the woman who's concerned about her job, okay, she's got the one voice says, okay, my boss hates me. Okay. Right. Well, she needs to take this seriously. She needs to, not the voice can't just stop there. Okay, why do you think the boss hates you? I mean, is it because you show up to work late every day? Well, that might be why. Okay. And you need to take that seriously because maybe it's trying to tell you something that you need to know. Okay, but if you do take it seriously and you find that the voice doesn't really have any reason, okay, except the look that the boss gave you, okay, then you need to develop the opposition to that. Oh, he doesn't hate me. That was just a look. He might be just having a bad day. Okay, that kind of thing. So now you have two different points of view. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, sometimes that's enough, but if that's not enough, then you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice. Which one are you gonna go with? Right.
Yeah, I think I have a scenario that I would like to walk through with you. And I'm
Okay.
thinking about some situations that I've been through. And I'm just wondering, how to change that voice. Okay. So, but before I present the scenario, I want to take a quick break, get a word from our sponsor. We're going to come
Okay.
right back, and then I'm going to walk through this scenario. So, be right
Okay.
back.
This podcast is sponsored by Lara Jane Coaching. You know you're ready to silence your inner bully voice? Let Lara Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to larajanelayton.com.
Okay, Keith, here's my scenario. And this is a real life one. So I have been project manager for lots of years. I won't tell you how many. Okay, you probably already heard those before, but what your job is running meetings, right? I mean, as a project manager, it is meeting after meeting after meeting. Um, and you you showed up, you did the work, you got through it. Sometimes meetings go over, sometimes meetings go short. You do your best to control a situation to make sure that everything gets done right.
Mhm.
So one week, uh, I was late to 3 meetings. Now, I can give you excuses, I can give you whatever. I didn't stop another meeting on time. I had to take a bio break in between, whatever excuse you want, doesn't matter. I was late for 3 meetings. Now, here's the scenario I want you to talk about. I didn't have a second guess about it. I knew I'm always on my meetings on time. I'm not habitually late. Just happened to be one week it was 3 in a row, well, 3 in a couple days.
Mhm.
So I get talked to from my boss. You
Mhm.
can't be late for meetings. You got to quit. You got to be more conscientious about your time, what
Mhm.
you're doing. And I thought, why? I've worked here for years, never been late. I mean, rarely late. If so, there's always situations that you can't do. But all of a sudden, I didn't like that boss anymore
Mhm.
because all of a sudden, only thing he could focus on was the one thing that I didn't control at the time.
Mhm.
So in my voice, every time I saw him after that, I was like, "Oh, he's probably wondering if I'm on my way late for a meeting or not." And that it overcame me with worrying about whether I was on time or late for a meeting, where I understand why you want to be on time. I understand why it's important, but I fought with myself for so long wondering, "Well, how do I find that balance? How do I turn off the being frustrated at him to being back to where it was 2 days before that, no big deal." All of a sudden, meetings weren't fun anymore. So, how do
So
you
if you
change
had to
that
put
voice?
in a sentence what that voice says, what would it be?
I just felt like mismanaging my time. I felt like I was being told I was mismanaging my time, which is affecting everybody else's time. And, when you have CEOs and VPs and all the C-level people in a meeting, that's a lot of money, what they have to wait
Okay.
5 minutes for
Okay.
you. And so it's I'm
Well,
not.
it sounds like it sounds like you on that day you did mismanage your time. But what you're objecting to is the generalization.
That I
Boss,
always did
the
it.
boss saying that you always do it when this was an exception. Okay. Okay.
Right. So how do you balance that when you feel like someone's saying always and one was exception because something had to get finished before I could drop it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be
So
like trying to revive a cardiac person here in the hospital. I'm giving you CPR, and this is a total
okay. Okay.
exaggeration.
Okay.
But oh wait, I got to stop. I got to go to a meeting. Bye. So then the person dies. So where's that balance of being okay with your decisions and understanding without having to justify it to everybody else? And I wasn't given CPR. That was just silly.
Mm-hmm. So to do step one, you got to take a good hard look at really what happened and what your actual track record is and all that. I'll take it for granted that you already have done all that. And what you're saying is true, that you're not usually late. And this was an exception. So to look into it further, I think you got to take a look at, is this part of a pattern? Do you often feel that people overgeneralize or accuse you of things that are unjust? Has this happened before?
Not really. I don't feel like that's a pattern of. I don't.
Okay.
Kind of like
Okay.
out of words. Like
Okay. Well, if it was, then probably 80% of your annoyance is about the pattern, what had already happened. Okay. And only 20% is at this one person who is saying something.
okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Um, so this is a very unusual thing. And it sounds like it's also because it didn't. Would it be safe to say that your boss doesn't usually overgeneralize this way?
Yes, caught me by surprise a lot. And my justification was probably somebody else was frustrated, brought it to their attention. And,
Okay. Okay.
so
So actually, his complaining to you about always being late is is, is an exception to the way he is. Okay.
Yep.
So you're overgeneralizing also
yes.
about your boss. Okay. 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 All right. So that would be step one, getting to know what the message is and see what it's all about. Step two would be the counter to that. And you've already offered the counter. I'm not always late. He is overgeneralizing. Are you satisfied in your own mind that you're correct with this, or is your concern trying to convince him?
It's so long ago in the past, I don't even remember.
Right.
But I just remember it was a situation I went through, and it only took maybe 3-4 weeks, and I felt like we were right back in the old rhythm,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it was just that initial shock of, anyway. And I know that our friend has run into those shocks. Something happened, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, uh, Adam, we feel like it's out of our control. And I remember I used to do with my kids the walk back scenario. Um, all right, how far back do we have to go where you could have actually changed the situation? Go back farther, go back farther. Sometimes it goes all the way to before you even got out of bed. And there's
Yeah.
so that there was no reason or for this particular situation, you just have to move forward, right? Because I couldn't walk back. It was impossible to change that. But in the future, I can make this decision at this time and not have it happen. So next time I'm late for a meeting, I will make sure I notify somebody by text message that I'm running late, that please cover for me until I get there. that would have solved the problem, right? So the meeting could have started, things could have moved forward, but I took it very personally, like, you're not understanding the whole situation. And I think sometimes we get so into our heads of wanting the other person to understand us that we end up off balance because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Why doesn't matter? It's
So I think what you're talking about is a special kind of voice. It's a voice that has no sound. It's a voice that has no words. It's you encountered the abyss, I call it. The abyss of I don't get it. This is totally irrational. You know? Um,
so what do we do in that situation? How do we acknowledge a silent voice?
um, I think we need to, for one thing, recognize it. Well, like let me give you a different example. Um, this isn't true, but let's just say I have a particular way that I like people to load the dishwasher. Okay. And I tell my son a million times how I want him to load the dishwasher. And then I go to look and he didn't load it that way. And I blow my top. Okay. Okay. Why did I blow my top? I blew my top because there's no sense in my mind. There's no sense to the way he's acting here. This is an encounter with the abyss, the the way this sometimes other people can be irrational and do things that is beyond our comprehension, and that itself will have an effect on us. We hate that feeling. We hate not being able to predict. This is why we produce these simulations in the first place, so that we can predict things. When we can't predict things, we feel lost. Okay. And then we then go to extremes to try to not feel this way. Okay? But yet, if you really think about it, if you look around your day, okay, um, there are a million things constantly that could be telling you that you know the world doesn't give a shit about you. Okay, you know? Your reasons don't really amount to much of anything. Right? We don't like to think about that stuff, so we usually uh, would rather think about the other stuff. But we have to acknowledge these things are there and find a way to to get comfortable and not require uh, certainty.
Mm. Wow, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
I like certainty. I like what I can count on, but that's a pretty good point. And I kind of think in what I have said in the past is I wish I could get rid of expectation. I think it's going to be this way. And so when it's not, then I'm disappointed. If I didn't have that expectation to start with, I wouldn't be disappointed, right? So it could be that same way with certainty. I want to make sure this is the way it's going to be.
yeah,
Then when
yeah.
it's not, then we're sad. Or when it doesn't
Mm.
happen just that way.
So in the situation with the boss, you had a simulation of your boss in your head that said he believes in you. He always thinks the best of you. He will never overgeneralize, all that kind of stuff. He was a pretty good boss that way. That was the boss that you needed, and that was the boss that he was. Okay, but
Hmm.
then one day he acts totally different, and you're thrown off. Okay, and you hate it, and you can't stop thinking about it because it doesn't make any sense, right? You're trying to figure out a way of putting it all together and make some sense out of it. And you don't have enough information to do that.
You say that and it made me just giggle inside
Right.
because I never, I am not the same every day. I have good days, I have bad days. I have days that something that's never ever bothered me in the past all of a sudden bothers me. Why did I just put why do I allow myself to do that and I just put it on somebody else that they can't?
Uh-huh.
Like that is like a breath of fresh air. It's like, "Oh, I was expecting more from them than I even expect from myself."
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we know how to approach now, right? We have our 4 steps of looking at these scenarios. We know that we have many voices in our heads, and we know we have the ones that creep up one day and never come back, but they're there. And so there's all these voices that we get to meet throughout our lifetime. And I think what the most important part of the message to me is back to that allowing. That person who didn't have time to say hi to you, allow them to be busy. That person who didn't invite you to go to lunch, allow them to go to lunch without you. Uh, you know, that person who thought you were always late for a meeting, allow them to say that. And it's on our job to prove them wrong, right? I'm not always late. I I'm not lonely. I'm not, there's all these things that are on us that we get to frame it in our brains. So, any last words of wisdom to help make sure that we're meeting our voices, we love our voices, we're dealing with them, and we're helping them to support us in our journey?
Well, you know what a lot of religions say about God is, I think, true of us and our voices. We are to our voices as God is to uh, his creation. These voices are our creation. We think that they're based, in the example of the voice we got from our mother. We believe that it's our mother's voice, but it's not really our mother's voice, because I talked about how when the child will distort what the mother said to make it make sense to the child. Okay, so it's really the voice of the mother is something that belongs to the child. Okay. It's a child's creation. These are all our creations, but we've given them free will. Okay. And they do what they want. Right. And, um, uh, and sometimes they appear to be out of control. And one approach that a lot of people make is they want to send a flood, okay, and destroy these voices, but that doesn't work. Right? Right. um, because you could destroy the like the story with Noah's Ark. The world gets destroyed and Noah's left, but Noah is a piece of work in his own self. Okay, he gets drunk and loses his temper and stuff like that. So he's not right either. So God kind of has to learn to forgive and not try to destroy all these creations that he's made. And he promises never to do this. And I think this is what people end up learning with respect to their own voices, that we have them, they're going to be with us, they're our own creation, but we kind of have to learn, we have to form some kind of a covenant with them, so to speak. Right.
I think what you said about they are our voice and they are our own creation gives you back the power to change it. If they were somebody else's voices, then you do have no power, but you get the power to change your response to those words and how they're treated. So, yes, I am late for a meeting. Yes, I had circumstances that were okay. I am usually and predictably on time.
Mhm.
You let go of that cycle or that hurricane in your brain that
Mhm.
is so whipping around trying to make sense of it, when you can set it on the back and just say, I know this is how I am. This is how I will be. I'm not, this is only respectively. I listened. I will do what I can to be more communicative if it happens again. But you get out of that hurricane into that peaceful eye of the storm, and you're okay again.
Mhm.
And we can sit there and let things be said and not take them on as our own. And if they are our thought, it is okay to step back and change it.
Mhm.
So, yes, I was late. Take the word always out. I'm on time tomorrow.
Mhm.
So we can change that voice in our head. Well, Keith, thank you so much for joining me today. I know our friend has loved listening to your wisdom. I
Mhm.
I learned a new scenario today, and that's turn off the mic. And
Okay.
it was such a beautiful scenario. I know I'll be using it again because you can turn off the mic and move people forward to a job.
Well, a lot of people misunderstand what that means. They think it says, "Oh, ignore my voices." No, I didn't say that. I said take them very seriously first, okay? And after you've done that, then turn off the mic.
Right. We were giving them a
Yeah,
job based on we now know what they need.
yeah,
We
yeah,
know
yeah.
what the opposition is, but now we can use it
Yeah.
to get through this.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Um,
Okay.
Friend, I am not a medical or mental professional. I am here for entertainment purposes. Someone that's been through crap and just choosing to share with everybody around to help them know they're not alone and you can get out of this. So thank you for joining and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.